Snoheta, the team headed by Snoheta.
Ftojmë në skemë për prezantimin e saj skuadrën e kryesuar nga studioja Snoheta.
The Snoheta team.
Hi, my name is Peter French from Snoheta. My colleague Conrad Holsmark. Our team consists of Studio Arc 4. There's a couple of representatives down the back there. Arab Engineering and the Oslo-based artist Jeroen Sannes. This is not our first time in Tirana or Albania. We've tried to get a few projects here before. Every time we come back, we're enamored by the stunning landscape. Just the height of the mountains, the hue and nature of the rock, the trees in the valley, and it's radiating up to nothing at the top. And also the built form, traditional built form is quite honest. Norway's full of landscape enthusiasts. So some of the elements you see here are same in Norway, but I think this is a little bit more special. We also love the mør, limestone from Peshkopi, the redness. You often see it around Tirana, it's kind of big square. And so we want to build something that's of the place, not imported, but of the place. Albania has a lot of karst landscape. This is a little bit of a geography lesson. That's where water has carved, eroded limestone, chalk, clay into fantastic tunnels, such as this. So these sort of gymnastic sort of structural expressions are something that interests us quite a lot. So these rivers from the aquifers over here run down into Tirana Valley, past our site and out to the sea. So I want to start by talking about Lot 2, on the presumption that Lot 2 will be built first and pay for Lot 1, but also materiality wise as well. So historically, one of those rivers I alluded to before ran through the city, indeed ran through our site here, Lot 2, the River Lana, which is now encased with reinforced banks. So we're enamored by this sort of erosion, the carving of stone, and it's something we want to explore further. Whilst we're thinking of that, we remembered our friend, the man, Gonzalez Fonseca, with his fantastic sculptures, the deep attention to detail, surprises, and creating space inside something. Also, Adrian Stokes's 4 stones, where he said that carving stone brings out the inherent quality of stone. It's not the artist who imposes form on it, it's the stone expressing itself. So our piece of stone for Lot 1 is 41 floors high. It's set back from the site boundary, the prerequisite 4 meters. And we've started to erode it, carve it, a series of carvings, starting at the top, a smaller, more finer carving, creating balconies for residential accommodation facilities. And then a larger valley is formed that separates the residential from other programs. And then down the bottom is a larger carving here, and we're creating this community zone in the middle. And then, of course, a grand arch welcoming people and providing access through the site at grade. And on that, we have a rather interesting facade. So you can see on the sides here, it's quite simple, but where it's been carved away, it gets more complex and more interesting. And overall, we get these fantastic 360-degree views around the city, access through to Skanderbeg Square, to the food and beverage facilities there, linking the city, which may not have been there before. Just zooming out a bit, look at the site. It's encased by one-way streets. So this is quite interesting. Once we put our site building on the site, we're pulled away from adjacent buildings by the carving, so they are not overcrowded. They have their own space. And we propose that car parking comes through here with the main frontage to Joan of Arc Street. This is what the building starts to look like in its context. the natural stone from Albania, starts to sit well with the mountains in the background and indeed some of the buildings in the city. A ground plane, which is super important. That's the plane that we all occupy. It's very public, very accessible. There's no hierarchy. Everyone enters the same way. So we have two foyers here and here. There's a water feature here, for evaporative cooling in the summer warm months, but also maybe as a reminiscent of the karst landscape, the water that eroded the stone in the first place. And this is what the drop-off area for the building looks like. So the drop-off is around here, water feature, very transparent, and the Murha stone becomes quite apparent with its fantastic grain of red and white. And then just another view looking towards it, so you can start to see the transparency at grade, and also what could be water forming these fantastic vaults in the foyers, welcoming and accessible. Above the ground plane is the first 9 floors of office. So this office is very flexible. 1 tenant, 2 tenants, co-working. The facades are quite deep. We're trying to self-shade the buildings as much as possible. We understand Tirana is 100% renewable energy, which is great. So I don't think we can do better than that. We can be better about how we use the building and retain that energy. So we're proposing very efficient facades in terms of thermal and also shading as much as possible. So this Murha limestone frames these fantastic views out towards the landscape. And then above that, the community floor, which is kind of the heart of the building, is here. So this is an open space. There's no glass. It's used for people who live above, the people who work there, so they can meet, join together. And also the public can come up as well. I think the first team had this similar idea about having this public space above the rooftops, fantastic views over towards the mountains. The rooftops sort of have this parallel, almost universe really. We've seen people getting haircuts, smoking, telephone calls, having a good time. So it's quite nice to be part of that tradition as well. It could be cafes up there as well. So it becomes a destination. We're also thinking maybe this is the plan. So it could have a library. There's a series of pods which are conditioned. So if it's colder, you can go there and sit inside, read, or have a cup of tea, or something like that. There's sports fields, there's pétanque, table tennis. Really very flexible. Above that is the accommodation. So the 2 towers, there's a residential tower to the left, hotel tower to the right. But they are connected just by the simple act of having a conversation from one side to the other, reinforcing that idea of community. You can start to see some of the carving that we've done. So these contain balconies in the carved area, which is shading, also protecting from the wind, and becoming quite nice places. This is a residential here, so 1, 2, 3 bedroom apartments, and a fairly efficient hotel to the other side. But together they are one building. A quick section just to show how things come together. Residential, office, hotel, technical floor here, transition for lifts and stuff, but also the community floor. So it's sustainable socially, so we're creating this community. Also, the floor-to-floor height of 4 meters, so if we were to repurpose that, we can. It become car parking, it become office, become hotel or residential. So there's an inherent flexibility built in, so we don't need to pull it down. And then the facade on top. The facade, quite special, quite difficult to explain. I'll do my best. If you imagine a U shape and a rounded U shape, and they're lofted together, where you cut them, the shape changes. So in some places with a deep cut, it can be quite U-shaped, whereas others it's more square. So what that means during the day, as the sun moves around, The expression of the building is always different, and it's quite intriguing to watch. And you can start to see the deep facades and the solar shading happening here. And then, of course, the facade starts to resemble the original cast landscape. And then the model expresses it quite well, so I recommend you have a look at it if you could. So going back to lot 1, where lot 2 was a sort of a subtractive design, lot 1 is more additive. So the leftover stone from Pushkepi, the Murmur, the bits that are left over we will make into granite, into terrazzo, sorry. So it becomes rich and also part of the area.
So
The site,
just to remind you about the time, 5 minutes left.
okay. The site is here, about 30 minutes walk from Sanderberg Square. It's very well, has a lot of public transport, a lot of parking facilities there. So we're hoping to use that micro-mobility as well. So we had this discussion. Albania is quite a young democracy, probably about 30 years. So it's an opportunity to sort of discuss, maybe explore what a government building should be. So the things that we thought about were transparency, accessibility, community working together. So the ground plane, we're bringing up into the building. So the public are part of the building, have access. In the center here is a discussion area, quite transparent, as discussions should be. And also it shouldn't be too monumental. It shouldn't be bigger than the mountains around it or any other building. On the site, it is hemmed in quite a lot by other buildings. Main access is through here. There is an underpass under here, so you can walk across the site, and with car parking access here. So building this building, not carving, but building, is thus 10 floors high. We pulled down the west end over here, and pulled it in from the side so as not to impose too much on the neighboring buildings. We brought the landscape up, so people can access the building, can bring people up into the building, and the landscape, the site becomes a gift for the people. And then the facade is wrapped around. The center is very transparent, and this is where people meet, discuss. So the building, you may not be able to see it all at once because of the buildings around it, but as a placekeeper, it becomes quite a nice thing. Sort of 50% glazing, quite deep as well. This is the main entrance, so you can see you come into the landscape in here and then up into the building. A ground floor plan, you can also see where you come in, here and here. This is underneath. First floor up, you can even walk up the hill into this public floor here as well. This central space here is where you sort of meet and be more social. And it starts to sit quite well with the rest of the city. As you move further up, you can start to see this transparent facade here. And on the roof, there is a food and beverage restaurant and a public space for viewing. These roofs here are open, so it becomes a nice shaded space to be above. The transparent facade I was talking about is very glazed, but with a steel mesh over it, so it becomes shaded. We want that transparency to invite people in and also for people to see out. And then you start to see that transparency here, but also these fantastic glimpses down the streets of the building. This is the section through the very, very transparent bit. A little bit dangerous, but maybe discussions are a little bit dangerous at times. And you can see the transition zone for structure here, and the building sits above. That facade, we're hoping we could use it to collect water. Maybe not so many plants, but water, and reuse that elsewhere for watering plants and trees, maybe toilets. Around the perimeter, it's very accessible all the way around with trees, and it's balanced on these two accessible landscapes. That's it.
It's very beautiful, the pictures that you showed us. I wonder how I can imagine the interior or the in-between space of these towers in reality. Is this prefabricated concrete elements, or is it really massive rock? I'm referring to the first project.
In an ideal world, would be just less project carvings or weeks on to create this thing which gives you perfect. I think that's not realistic. So there will be, I think there will be a degree of prefabrication. I mean, how you control the joints to make it feel solid, the matching of the grains. That's a surprise in itself.
And then it will be polished concrete elements with the components of the rock.
For the sector, yes. That's right. So these, the angles could be big and small, but we can cut it and start to see their grain. So that quality is in the other building. It's slightly different. It's more a more pragmatic building business for us. That's so good.
Thank you for the project presentations. I think the concept for both are pretty straightforward, and at certain point you mentioned in the presentation of this one, the facade is efficient. So I was wondering if you could articulate a bit more on that, please.
Sorry, efficient.
You mentioned an efficient facade.
Yes,
I was wondering.
Glazing will be double glazed with high U values, and then the wall will be quite efficient around. The proportion of glazing to solid wall is quite low. These facades here will be shaded, self-shading, so they're quite deep. So when the sun's at a high angle, at its highest, it'll be shading the glass. So hopefully we won't get too much heat gain.
The facade of the building also, when you, for example, the north-facing side will have a lot shallower facade. The south-facing side will then have very specifically the depth adjusted for the solar shading.
So, sorry, thank you for the presentation. I think it was really interesting in both cases. Referring to this one that I couldn't understand, you were talking about the stone, and now looks like it's more the whole thing will be in concrete. I understood, or
Structurally, which is in the book, it's cores without riggers holding this concrete frame.
okay.
So the stone it wants to appear is being carved out, has a depth, a band in front and side, and the joints are sort of super precise minor joints. So you don't see any sections, you just see a solid.
So it's the facade is real stone. I mean, yeah. Okay, but well, my question also is because that curve of the stone, so that's why you are keeping that the same for the rest of the facade, the same kind of stone, or and interiorly also the interiors that you show also they look like same materiality somehow. I mean, with the same colors and red color inside as well.
Yes,
is that right?
As some sort of expression.
Well, the other one, you had another one even with the ceiling in red. So okay,
Yeah.
the idea is to have that kind of feeling. Okay.
Thank you.
So no more questions. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Zonja dhe zotrinj, vjoj me paraqitjen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with the last presentation from this group.
We'll have 15 minutes of presentation and then 5 minutes of questions and answers. We'll have now the team of Zaha Hadid Architects.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. We have to say thank you as well to the organization of this dual competition. I'm here on behalf of Zaha Hadid Architects. My name is Maria Loreto Flores. I'm an associate director in Zaha Hadid since 2006. And I'm here with a team composed by AS Architects, FM Engineering, and Pierin Kolnikov as an artist. Being in Tirana this time is very emotional for me because 13 years ago, I was in the presentation of the mosque and the museum where I was the lead designer. That time, we were not lucky, but life gives second opportunities. So let's see. We are going to start showing our dual crafting experience for two buildings. For the administrative cluster and for the tower. In both of them, what we want to highlight is two things. The link between art and architecture, how the carving of massing are interweaving together, and also the sustainability. Zaha Hadid Architects has been working since a long time in how to embed the sustainability principles into the design. And we are doing it now in these two buildings in Tirana, and we hope to be successful on that. We are driving all our principles for the way that we have designing landmarks in different cities that create a different sense of community and also change the faces of the cities, like the projects that you can see here in the screen. But also, how we have designing different vertical residential experiences where the towers also create an iconicity, but a different relationship of what is happening around and the neighboring areas. So starting with the administrative building, our idea was to work with a volume that is low rise, that is answering to the scale of the context where it's immersed, but also represents this complexity of different institutions brought together into one mass. If you can see here, we are merging with the context. So this is the first principle of this massing, while the principle of the tower is emerging from it. So you will have this sense of being an administrative, efficient building that is also answering to the context, is giving facades, urban snapshots, view towards the neighboring areas, and also creating synergy with them. The inspiration idea is the collaboration of individuals. It's this strong holding hands where every finger, let's say in a hand, has a different function, but we are all working together for the same principle. So this public administrative building is immersed in the community. It's democratic, it's strong at the same time, it's rooted in tradition through colors, through materials, and to the way that the volumes are put together, giving individuality to the different clusters, but at the same time, allowing them to have different spaces and creating these interstitial spaces in between roof terraces, corridors, and voids that are propagating the social gathering. We are creating a new cluster, and it's a new cluster that has a different function from the institutional one and from the nature that are currently in the city. So in this case, we are proposing this synergy with the green areas of the stadium and the park in front. This will be a space where all the neighbors can walk they can enjoy the green space and potentially as well understand a bit better what the government is doing, being also transparent. This is our urban vision and the different opportunities that the site was giving us. We decided that creating a visual and a physical connection directly to the green area was the strongest thing to do to also elevate the building and create this ground floor where the circulation is seamless, where everyone can go. There are spaces that in a way are covered, that they are uncovered, that they are associated to some of the clusters. And again, very as well rooted in the way that the shape space of the materiality that the artist was working on is also helping us to define. So we have a reflection in between what the artists and the sculptures are doing in the way that our massing is working. This building is around 40 meters height. It has a different facade with these different views towards the different areas of the neighborhood. And at the same time, as I was talking here, you can see how these penetrations create a fully public ground floor where you can access to the different clusters of the agencies through the cores that are marked there in pink. Each core has also a lobby. So we are giving, as I was saying at the beginning, the individuality, but at the same time, they are all together in this public plaza. We have here the program distribution. This has been very important for the team in the way that we have to answer to the brief and to the needs of all the different agencies as they are working together. We have also an option of a different activation of the public space. What is in green could be open 24 hours, while you can have also a courtyard that is enclosed. So there are different security measures on that, though the passage should be always allowed for the neighbors. Circulations are as well very well defined for the services as well as for the pedestrian. Of course, the pedestrian area is the one that has the privilege and is linked to this whole cluster together with the stadium. We have here how the building is emerging and mixing for the different clusters and how the different spaces are connected to a core. They have also the offices, they have the gathering spaces, and we can go through the mix and the interweaving of all these agencies together. This, of course, is much more detailed in the report, but here we are just trying to show that it's a fairly democratic way. It's a very flexible space that can also be utilized in different ways. Going back now to the materiality and to the sustainability strategy, as I was saying at the beginning, this building is using local materials, it's mass, it's bricks and concrete. We try to use the color to also, as I was saying, dialogue with the environment through the way that we are working with PV panels as well on the roof and through the way that we are qualifying the different sides of the facades. You can also see that we reduce a lot of the solar radiation and the embodied carbon as well. So it's a very good result that is also targeting the principles of RIVA 2030. Transparency at night. The building keeps working, keeps being a beacon, though it's humble, though it's not imposing in this new area, but is, as I was saying, collaborating with the whole space and going beyond the administrative role, becoming really a space for the community to engage and gather. Now we are going to talk about the Meridian, which is our tower. This tower is very innovative in the way that we have designed it. It might be very different to the things that we have done before, and I think that that's one of the great qualities. So we try to make this building to emerge from the ground and to give different facades very related to the way that the floor plates are answering to the solar radiation. So the strategic location of the site, of course, allow us to merge what is the nature from the park to the thriving city of Tirana, creating as well this new activation pole where the tower will bring value to the land, will bring services as well, and also will become a new icon for the skyline of the city. So the inspiration and the architectural operation of this is the carving, but not the carving just to remove material, but to reveal what is inside, the shape, the heart of this tower, and how the different components that we are shaping can be stuck to create this livable community that is vertical in this case and that will host different functions. This is the result of the tower. The tower is also made in bricks. It has a differentiation of a glass facade that is very permeable. And on the other side, it has a more solid facade, always with balconies. For us, it's very important that these terraces,
Only 5 minutes left.
these terraces are having different views of the site. The podium as well is completely open, is dialoguing with the river, is creating this spill-out spaces where lobbies, shops, public plaza, and restaurant are together, serving this podium that is also public until the level 5. And then you will have a series of different floor plates that are designed to have different type of apartments and offices. The sustainability and the radiation studies were done in-house by our design team. So that's what I was saying. This is not a process that was applied afterward, but it's something that is embedded already in the design, how we qualify the north-facing facade, the south-facing facade, and then the light will play with it and create this effect of the movement. We also have the qualification of the balconies done through the material and the way that we are achieving very good also sustainability credentials for embodied carbon and operational carbon. This is a bit of a summary of the plans. You will see this tower is done with a central core that grows and changes for the different functions to create this kind of a spiral movement that we hope becomes a landmark in Tirana. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'd like to go back to just a little bit of the premise of the competition in general and say that I think what we've seen so far, there's really there's an emphasis on the needs of people who are changing office. We're bringing together a whole lot of people into one new building, and there's a lot of needs there, and there's a lot of specificity in the way that their day works. And I just to go back to that building, I'm wondering, there's a kind of there's a really prominent facade there facing the large road. Is it required to remove those two buildings for that facade to be understood in that way? And if we don't remove those two buildings, does it still have the same presence? And just again, talk a little bit to us about how you think about the presence of a public building in that neighborhood, because I think it's really interesting how you create a new pole, a new public pole there, with a lot of grand facade.
Sorry, there are many slides. Yeah, actually, we do have a slide that shows that, but we hide it for the presentation because we had too many. But it does. When we did the studies, we have the two buildings. So here, this was one option. Maintaining the two buildings, we still have the same presence of it. But then we went to the extreme of taking them out because we thought that it was important to create, because this building is low rise, and we wanted to really create a public space, it was important to create this entrance plaza, this buffer between the two areas that could connect better to the rest of the greenery there with the park in front and with the stadium. But yes, I think that is part of a development, but definitely it can work. If I go to the main, one of the main views, Probably, yes. Part of this, one of the cluster won't be as clear as you see it in this image. But I think that the principle is always that the people is able to circulate, is able to relate to the different cluster, is able to understand that there is work done for the government there, and then the things are not enclosed. No, it looks like a building that is, as I was saying, for us, what is really important is to bring the idea of this holding hands, of being approachable, and that people understand that that space is the space that the government building is giving to the city. Sorry, I went through the other side. Marco, do you want to say something else about that?
Yes, so in the first stage, what we did, we put out this vision about like opening the park with the bridge. So we've been shortlisted and we went in that direction. But of course, thinking about the fact that the building must work also in the current situation. So we are proposing in the renders and in our vision this like outcome, but of course, everything is working well also in the current situation. We have enough buffer from the two buildings to the main facade in this. Sorry, yeah, we have. Can you go back? No, the plans. Okay, so in the plans, okay, so the buildings will be here, but this plaza will be open up and is permeable. You can enter inside. There's nothing that changed. The only thing that we wanted to propose is like this vision to connect the building to the park and to this other, say, and creating this new cluster.
Sorry, I think there is always a move that needs to be done in order to create maybe a bigger impact. And probably, yes, there are balances to do, but we definitely think that by creating that plaza, you are giving far a more impactful space, public space to the city.
This is more of a philosophical question, but is the building future-proof? Let me give you one example. You know, we witnessed during COVID the death of the office. You know, WeWork collapsed. So in a scenario where more and more work will be done remotely and more work will be done online, how is the building future-proof? Like, what could a city or a government use this building if the death of the office comes sooner than expected?
I think the principle for this, again, is the collaboration. No, these are spaces that can be flexible to allow for offices, to allow maybe for a school, for a university to come in. This principle of aggregation of cluster is somehow transversal to many other activities. So it could be eventually reused for other functions. The plans show that, you know, you can either use them as a volume vertical, you can also use it horizontal. So I think the flexibility is in here. At the end of the day, you can aggregate pieces, no? A little bit like a Lego, and see how you can reconfigure, though the volume outside needs to continue answering and being rooted in the area where it was designed for.
Christian?
Hello, thank you. I actually appreciated a lot the effort of figuring out how many rooms these people need.
Yeah.
I think it's it shows that the care you put in the evaluation of the program. I was wondering regarding the public space, because you stressed that connection a lot. I was wondering, maybe it's my impression from the render, that I feel the building is actually sitting on top of a public, semi-public area, instead of being very inviting people to get in. Is it a matter of I don't know, maybe lighting
Yeah.
in the renders, or is it just my impression?
Yes, I think it's a matter of lighting, of course. Sorry, these plants are so nice that I can never find the one that I'm looking for. But the building, I think the building is inviting through the connection, visual and physical connection that we are trying to make with the green area in front. Is lifting up one level for this ground floor. We do have water, we have the sculptures there.
Can
But
we go to that run?
yes, I'm gonna try to find it. I don't want to it's this space, for example, no? Here. This area, for example.
So also this area on the left, we have double height space. So there is different volumetries of the public space in which here we enter and we have like kind of canyon in which we can pass through. We can open up the space to double height level, and here instead is a little bit lower. So we have this composition of volumes that allows us to create a dynamic space.
Okay, I think yes, Christian, if you don't want to do any, no?
No, I think so.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think it was very clear, very nice presented. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us now continue with the first presentation about the mixed-use development cluster number 2. We now will have a 15-minute presentation and 5 minutes of Q&A. We'd like to invite to the stage the team headed by Archi-Tectonics.
I just got turned on. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's a long sit. Very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting us, Prime Minister Rama, Atelier, Albania team, and I understood the AIC. We're very happy to present the partners of all the companies are here, Archi-Tectonics New York, Winka Dubbeldam, and my partner Justin Korehammer. Hans van Bovenkamp couldn't make it, is our artist, incredible person, making very large urban installations, Dirtworks, right next to me, Alex Hart, and Thornton Tomasetti, partner Daniel Bozia. We are really super interested in the whole project as it is presented here. Typically, we work very much on what the Tirana 2030 plan says, people and planet, looking at intelligent custom-made facades, custom manufacturing, but especially also collaboration with stakeholders and teams, and to make sure that we understand what is on the table exactly. We're also super interested with the amazing Kula houses, the tower houses, as they are here, very defensive structures, very solid structures, but also, of course, very able to deal with the climate or the layering of architecture and nature as it happens here. When, of course, in the third image, we're all dealing with this now, super high temperatures and a lot of flooding, which then leads to the fourth image, which is smart facades. Here in this particular, you've seen this many times, so I'm not going to go through it too much. But of course, the amazing quarries, the stone was of inspiration to us. Albania, funny enough, is not just a Mediterranean climate, but as you know, subtropical. So that means you're also the wettest, which we like because actually you can deal with a lot of green roofs and you can also use green roofs then to absorb stormwater. The Tirana 2030, as I said to us, was of inspiration which we then interpreted to kind of the idea of the two sites being a united campus and how we could start to introduce the idea of shared streets. So really thinking of both for the more government building and for the housing as a shared kind of urban space that is very much dealing with these kind of beautiful local colors, traditions, and nature we found here. The stakeholders are really interesting to us because of the fact that you have 50% of your population is under 35, which is of interest because the whole of Europe is actually graying. So we have a graying population in Europe. You're one of the populations with a very young population, which means your working population, the people who are working, are also actually extremely young, which means we are interested in looking at other types of a workspace, and you have a 30% rent increase, which is a lot. So that means we have to think of other ways of housing. We have two sites here. The sites are all in a bike distance, 10 minutes from the city center. The bottom is the rising prices. So we have two lots, one there that is in a quite high price range. That is the government building, and then the lot 2, which is the housing tower, which sits in slightly moderate but still high price. So our stakeholders are really young professionals, students, and of course the government workers. I will storm through these things really quickly. So we looked very much at Tirana 2030, understood the river park master plan and the idea of these boulevards connecting very fluidly all these different sites, and then our lot 1 as it is connected in the city fabric to really understand how to incorporate existing buildings, set back the building, allowing for public plazas that can provide cooling, green, and play space. The lot 2 is for the housing and surrounded by many universities and other student housing. So the idea of a united campus seemed really important here. It's great that it's connected to a lot of public transport, and bike storage was something we thought was really important to provide. So the first project I'll go into, it has 3 government agencies that are occupying the space. And for us, what was really important, as you can see here in the 4 diagrams, looking at the site, we understood we could do a high tower, but as it is a quite modest area, we thought it's much more important to embrace the existing structure, which was currently actually renovated or recently renovated. And then the last move is actually move towards the city, as we understand government being much more transparent in recent years, and also allowing the public much more in the decision making. Oh, sorry. So then here the building has a front at the street facade where there is not only a lobby, also exhibition space, a semi-public library, and kindergarten and daycare for the people working there, with a playground, because we understood in Tirana 2030 you have a huge lack of playgrounds and you cannot have ever enough play space. So this whole area is kind of semi-public. The offices look out over it. As the tower rises, it starts to integrate quite a bit of green space. And that leads me to my friend. I studied actually sculpture and architecture, but one of my friends who makes amazing urban sculptures, which he explains brings back the human to the architecture, or is a kind of an in-between mediator. And this particular one is a fountain, because we felt in the hot summer months could be an informal play space. It's a walkable fountain, so kids can play under it and enjoy getting wet. So this is Hans van Bovenkamp. And he says a gate can be more than utilitarian. So he likes to make 2 things: gates for people to pass through, which he says is all about transformation, and fountains. The space, as you can see here, is that we try to unite the two buildings in the best possible way, and that happens a lot through green space. So on top, the public plaza, which incorporates green space to absorb stormwater and the walkable fountain. A very generous lobby space going into this building, where I explained has exhibit, lobby, library, and daycare, and a playground behind it. The building in between also gets on top of the entrance a very large terrace, which is the biggest meeting room in the building. So moments like this, where we all need a coffee or another drink to kind of relax, is right there. But also on the second floor, we connect to the existing building, which had already some small recreation space, which we drastically extended. But also thought it was beautiful to bridge over to an existing building, and that is, of course, a terrace on the tower. Then here I am going to give it to Alex for a second, but this is really that floor which now starts to incorporate existing. Go ahead.
Mirita, so we are here to talk about landscape a little bit, and this is a critical part of this overall structure, not just a decoration or an afterthought, but forms a very important experience for everyone who is here. And how do we do this? There are really three scales primarily that we integrate landscape in a meaningful way into this project. At first, with the grand scale, Tirana 2030, the master plan, we studied this, we love it. There are many specific items that we can bring in and tie into, everything from the planted ring road, where we can enhance that and make a piece of it, to the small pieces of the play. Now we look at the green roofs, and I know you might react and say, oh, this is pie in the sky. No, we actually worked very hard and actually are inspired by the geology and botanica of Albania to have a gradient of plants, where at the base we are using more plants that are more lush, more river valley types. And as you go up, we use plants that want to be in those places. So we have the building creates places where people want to be, and it also creates places where plants want to be. So we keep the maintenance to a very, very low minimum. We want this place to last a very, very long time and delight the people who are here. So the second major scale is this neighborhood scale. Even though our sites are small, we have remarkable opportunities here to reach out to the neighborhood. We believe government should be transparent and be able to invite people to come and enjoy their spaces. And so we have these places that connect and invite people to come in, whether it's the playground or anywhere else. Finally, perhaps most important scale is the experience of the person themselves. How do they do this? Prime Minister Rama mentioned in his speech that we need to take care of the government workers. This is a critical population. I myself worked in the city government for 10 years. I understand this. We need to attract city government workers that are the best, the smartest, the brightest, and their impact will have a great impact across the city. So we want their experience to be beautiful, top class, not just best in Albania, best in the world. And so they can come here and do a variety of things. They feel like they're enticed to come. Zonia Luarashi in the cadastre, maybe she gets tired of looking at maps. She needs a breath of fresh air and comes down and has a meeting with colleagues, or perhaps tea by herself, or maybe even meets her friends down in the cafe for lunch. Many experiences to choose and be able to sit in the sun or the shade. In doing so, we create a rich experience for everyone to be here. So with this, I turn back and thank you.
Yeah, these are just some, I mean, the model is obviously over there, but these are some ideas of how the building embraces the existing building. I forgot to mention, on the top of the roof is a solar panel farm, so that the building can be as independent as possible from electricity from the outside. All the green areas are really stormwater retaining areas, and to make life for the Tiranians as nice as possible. And I'm going to ask Daniel to talk about our cantilever.
Well, just very briefly,
You just have 5
we've seen a lot of
more from your time. You just have 5.
We've seen a lot of cantilevers today. This one, we tried to make it as simple and economic as possible, using tried and tested techniques. So it's a heavy base and a lightweight cantilevering steel top. So we looked at this very carefully. You know, we've done this many times, you know, and I've developed techniques which go far beyond the code of practice. We use performance-based design to go beyond.
Yeah, and to go into the facade, so we propose to actually use sand made from leftovers from the quarry and aggregates from the quarry, but to make prefabricated units which are lightweight, deep, so they give good shadow. And the difference on the top is the building without the facade and with the facade, so you can see 2/3 of the radiation will actually be diminished. The program is very simply connected, but what is most important is this yellow space on top. So we did not add extra space to the floor plan. We combined all the joint spaces like cafes, flex space, relaxed space, but mostly also co-working space. As this is a very young group of people working, we felt they needed a commons. Flex space has huge benefits. It's collaborative. It allows for greater inspiration and much more open, transparent ways of working. So we gave that space also its own infrastructure and the way this is. It's also, of course, very light in this large cantilever to have this very open space that really functions also as a green lung and it's breathing. We condensed the buildable square footage enormously by doing an autonomous archiving system, up to 10,000 pieces, no loss of material, 99% inventory and security tracking and safety, and all that practicality combined with a lot of really beautiful spaces. Can I run this? And then here we do a quick sweep. You'll see when we go around the building, you'll see the playground in the back, which is really important for the kids to be in, as well as all the other public spaces, of course, are for semi-public or public spaces. The second lot is for a mixed-use tower, I should say. A housing tower that is for, you know, the group of people we realized is very young. They like to live in the city center. It's very expensive. So we propose a sort of a version of micro-housing that combines micro-housing, small apartments, huge amount of shared spaces, bike storage, parking, landscapes, and below it a commercial area to make enough funds for this building that really has an amazing connection to the streetscape, has restaurants and commercial with a public park on top for the inhabitants, as you can see here. Sort of the idea of the United Campus, very important. So it connects to the neighboring areas, which are all universities and also campus. And of course, again, the green for stormwater, retention, water to cool down the area. And a very pragmatic tower, which actually for developers, I think they like. It is basically a simple core and a structural facade, which means interior completely flexible. Size of apartments can change as you want it. And then here that connected space. And then here I go back to our landscape real quick.
Very quickly. Again, keeping in mind the experience of everyone that will come here. And one part of that experience, when you have tall towers, the wind tends to ride down and make it very unpleasant. And so we have the balconies that help to break that up. Same idea with the gradient on the plantings that are very low maintenance and can last a very, very long time with minimal care. Again, the total experience integrating with the site and also bringing in stormwater in this extremely important, very wet city.
And then, of course, really important again is the facade. So
you are out of time, please.
I'll have 2 more sentences. So the facade is the public spaces are floating, the park, the gymnasium, light comes in, the tower ventilates itself. The apartments are really pretty because you have the trellis outside that shades again the whole experience of the inside. You see the same diagrams shading the building, bringing back half of the heating. At night, of course, you start to have this incredible experience of light and the trellis as it's simply in front of the building. Shall I talk about structure? Yeah. The structure was very cleverly designed by Daniel to be very strong on the bottom, as you can see, and lighter on the top. But what we think is very beautiful is that it actually is invisible by day, but at night, slowly, this structure appears. So here, the terrace that is for the inhabitants with study spaces and billiard spaces to be shared, going through the terrace. And to close, we see the bike person coming out of the bike storage and the tower as it starts to reveal its structure at night, and a huge, generous amount of outdoor spaces. So although their apartments are small, they're extremely generous in outdoor and shared spaces. Paramenderit? I said that wrong, but did it? Oh, question, sorry.
I could start with a landscape question. It's a really interesting focus on landscape. I think it's really appreciated also by the people working there. Multiple ways to go outside. I'm wondering about, do you think much about the maintenance of the ground level? Who does that belong to? And is that part of the kind of economic plan of the building?
Yes, absolutely. And we do this in pretty much every development that we work on, that it's incorporated in with a complete maintenance plan for an operations plan. To do this, there's a series where it looks very lush and green to anyone who comes, but it's actually quite simple and very understandable, almost modular in the way that it's inhabited. And so this is something that's very critical, because I've seen so many landscapes that are beautiful on day one, and 1 year later, they are empty. We don't want that to happen, so we start that from the beginning.
Yeah. They're essentially maintenance-free green roofs. So what they do is they absorb a huge amount of stormwater, but they'll self-irrigate because of it. Yeah.
Thank you. I was wondering, the two projects, there's a kind of a similar treatment for the facade, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got clearly, let's say, the function of the facade in the tower. I wonder if there is a specific system applied for the geometry of this facade in this building.
Yeah, you mean the office building?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, let me actually show that to you. Well, yeah, just one close-up. Here, what we thought was really interesting is to take that sand we talked about, which is basically it, because the world has a lack of sand, which is an interesting problem. So we thought the quarries make a huge leftover material that's usually not used, to grind that up and use that as sand, but also to use the stone of the quarry as an aggregate, and then to make lightweight concrete prefabricated elements. So basically the facade is completely suspended from the floors. It's not in this case, not structural. The structure itself is steel and independent from this and behind this. So these elements have a very deep profile, which means it gives huge shading, and are randomly distributed. But really the shading is very important. So it gives great views while it still has a massive shading coefficient. We calculated that in a hot summer day, 45% of the heat would be reflected back out, while being quite a nice, warm, inviting facade. So we don't like to use resources or overuse resources. So hence we use aggregates and hybrid materials, because one, they're more pragmatic in maintenance, and two, you don't get to use all your resources. So.
Sorry, and keeping in that question, can you explain also about the facade in the tower?
Yes,
Yeah.
This facade we actually built before. I'm Dutch, so it's a Trespa material that is maintenance-free, warp-free, and very effective because it's a solid core panel. It's also very easy to install. Sorry, I'm going there. It's very easy to install because we install steel lips on the facade, or aluminum lips, and then pivot point of the panel is stuck on that. We're going here. There's a panel somewhere. Oh, here. And also you see it here in the apartment, right? So here you see them. So again, it's a very transparent from the inside, from the outside. As you can see, it has quite a solid feeling. But you can see it as a simple aluminum mullion facade. And outside of that, as you can see in this drawing, there is this little lip that also gives shading to the inside. And then these are just pivoting panels that are the solid core Trespa. Trespa itself has a really great sustainability model in the fact that they produce things without waste and long duration. They're impossible to destruct. So we made actually a building with these trellises, I don't know how many years ago, and that's a moving one. This is actually static, but that's a moving one, and it is amazing how beautiful they stay. So no warping, no discoloration, no maintenance whatsoever. They stay perfect.
The differences in colors that we see is due to the movement or?
Yeah, exactly. Because the color, the inside is black, and the outside we took a dark gray color. So depending on how they flip, they're black or dark gray. So you get that kind of differentiation in color. We made the arrangement parametrically in the computer to vary in the facade so that it catches all light from whatever time of day. And then the idea is that by day, you actually just see the trellis skin, but by night, you get this sort of magical appearance of the structure behind, which, of course, I should have said is a super good structure for seismic, because this diagonal brace is the best way to have a tower. And the other thing, what we thought is because the tower has two legs, is another way to make it a building very cheaply, but very efficiently, extremely stable. So thank you, Daniel. But yeah, we had a really great collaboration with Thornton Tomasetti.
Yeah, and since you said very cheaply, we were looking a little bit to the figures, and we figured that the construction cost for the tower is much less than the construction cost for the administrative building. Is it a mistake, or is it exactly like that? And maybe you don't, like, you cannot answer that right now, but you can check later and give us an answer before the jury deliberations.
Well, we have our local Albanian,
It's
Alisa.
It's not a mistake. It's depending on the materials that we use, and we calculate them depending on the material.
Yeah, it was a very quick process, so our communication might have not been exactly perfect. Yeah.
So but both buildings are mostly in situ concrete, which is what is used normally here in Albania. But
yeah,
the very top of the office building is steel, so that's why there's a slight premium.
Yeah.
But 90% of the building is concrete.
Also, the idea is that the facades are prefabricated, so they can be installed extremely fast and efficient, no waste and no real problems for the neighborhood. So we always like to build in ways that we put very little pressure on the neighborhoods for construction, because as we all know, construction is extremely hard for neighborhoods. So we like to work with prefabricated facades that go on buildings very fast and give no problems for neighbors and install clean and efficient.
Questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Zonja dhe zotrinj, vjojmë me paraqitjen e dytë.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue with this next concept design. We'll listen for 15 minutes to the architecture studio.
Good afternoon. We are really happy, Alexander Jacobi and myself from Architecture Studio, to present to you the work of our team. So our team is composed of Architecture Studio, structural engineer Pierre Bock, CIPD, Florence Mercier, landscape designer, Krijn de Koning, the artist, Studio Karian, Jan Kersalé, the lighting artistic design, and Ecocité, the economist. So our Tirana entered in our life almost 20 years ago from now, and we have learned when we worked on the master plan of the city center to work in intelligence with the city. So this is how we have worked on these two projects. We think that the city of Tirana, we have much to learn from it, and also she gives you in return much of inspiration in the project. So we'll start with the property institution cluster. We call it an energizing working place. So I would like to say that first we want to assess the context, not only the one of our site. These are the two sites actually that you can see here, lot 1 and lot 2, but we want really to understand how they sit in the whole city. So the first group were, let us say, in a more central area. These two lots are almost along the second ring road, and we really think that this area needs to be activated thanks to this, to the building to come and these new buildings. So here is a zoom on the site where we are doing the property institutions clusters. And here we are really very much interested in dual character of the site. So want to work in synergy with the site. And what we call the dual character is that you can see very rationalistic, compact buildings, and also the urban fabric that is very like the vernacular urban fabric of Tirana that still survives in these dotted areas where we have one-story building or two-story buildings surrounded by greening. So here you can see this dual scale of the site and its surroundings, and we wanted really to have a building that reflect and addresses the two scales of the site. So on the left side, this is the vernacular, informal and formal green, and we have on the other side functional, compact and modern buildings. So we have also been very interested in the dual function of the property institution clusters program. So here we have the three entities, which are the ASHK, ASHSH, and ATP, and also the existing building, which belong to ASHK, that form like a group of working spaces, let us say, but also the program provide for shared spaces that are smaller scale spaces, like the prayer room, expo library, eating spaces, meeting room, cafeteria, kindergarten, and we think they have the potential to make very livable working spaces. It means we wanted really to make the best of the program of this project. And finally, the dual scale of the site and the dual function of the program ended up with us doing a project where we kept the legibility of all these entities. So you can see in pink the shared spaces and in blue the working spaces. The working spaces are designed to be flexible. So now we know the functions, they might change, they might expand. There were a question about the office, I mean, what will become office spaces, but we want really to give the person the feeling of belonging first, but also to see where they are. It means if they want to go to the cafe, to a meeting room, there is a life inside the building, and the life inside the building dictated the way we worked on the building. So this is the existing building. It was very important for us to keep the quality of this building in terms of daylight, in terms of functionality. And then we have connected it to the perpendicular building that you can see here. It's parallel to Panorama Street, perpendicular to the existing building. And this is the first intervention on the site. We have connected it to the existing building, make a vertical extension of the existing building, and then we have set in a landscape structure all the shared spaces that you can see, like pavilions in pink, reflecting the vernacular scale of the site. So this is the facade on Panorama. So I will start first by the ground floor. the ground floor, we want really to use this building to energize the public space, to enhance the public realm. And that's the reason why, for us, the interactivity that will happen at these two levels is of paramount importance. This is the lobby, the entrance lobby. We have kept an entrance plaza because, of course, the existing building has entrance in this area. So it's good to keep the legibility. And then we have used the archive volume because we have 2,500 square meters of archives that we put adjacent to the existing archive spaces in order to create a Mediterranean-like terrace at the first floor. So this Mediterranean-like terrace will be really the green heart of the project. And then if we see what the component on zooming in, so the entrance plaza, and then we ask Krijn de Koning to imagine how we can put his artwork. And the artwork of Krijn de Koning, you can see it is really at the threshold of the inner heart of the project and Panorama Street. It plays with the stairs that lead to the first floor terrace. And it's really a way of attracting the eye of people inside the cluster and on the green space. And of course, this is the first floor terrace, the green heart of the project, where we have the pavilion of some of the shared spaces. So this is a zoom on this entrance that I was describing. We really think that it can enhance Panorama Street and start a new generation of development of this area. So these are the study sketches, hand sketches by Krijn de Koning. Defining the work as a structure playing with the void, of course, because we are shifting the building in order to give this terrace a panoramic view on the neighborhood. And here, what we have called the energizing work, we are energizing the working spaces. So we have like a green setting that start from the first floor terrace and go ahead until reaching the roof terraces. And it continue also by a path on the facade, on the main facade. So we have to imagine that although not all people, it's not a continuous promenade, but we are interlacing the functional, flexible, nice working spaces with these shared spaces and their landscape. So we came up with this master plan. I think here we have the existing building, and this is Panorama Street. So I will not elaborate more on that. And here we have like one of the 3D models that we did. We can see the continuation that we have between this terrace and the different rooftop terraces, but also we have like stairs that are appealing in order to encourage using as less as possible the lifts for internal distribution. Also, we have very efficient lift strategies. So here we have the different functions. We are continuing the archives on this side, and we have here the ASHSH, the ATP, and then the ASHK that are here. And this image, I think, speaks by itself. We see how we are integrating the building to the neighborhood all around. We see also how the scale of the building that we have, the new building in front, overlooks this terrace, and we have this playful volumes and how the life is really expressed inside the buildings. So I will go very quickly on the plans just to show that it was really thought in accordance with the programs that were received. So we have the entrance plaza and the lobby, which is a transparent welcoming volumes, and we can go up to the terrace. On the terrace, we have the different amenities and also a double height for the main hall. The existing building is in gray. Then here we have like a typical organization of an office floor. We have grouped very close to the lift, and you can see that the lifts are daylit. It's very important for the life of the building. All things in like meeting rooms that are shared activity are very close to the lift, and we have the working spaces on the other side in order to reduce the cross circulation between the functions. This is a typical office space, very flexible, and as the building is not very deep, it can allow for natural ventilation, and we can have daylight in the circulation. So it's really very appealing and inviting people to consume as less as possible of energy and reduce the carbon footprint. So here we have a shared space. I will go quickly on the upper floor until reaching the roof terrace. So here we are extending, and we checked it with our structural engineer, the possibility to extend on the additional building, and it's completely feasible with a light structure. And then we continue until reaching the 9th floor, where we have this rooftop terrace, where we have the meeting room, and this will become a belvedere on the city that can be very attractive. So this is how it's organized, the basement with storage. Here we have like the scale of the building is not higher than 46 meters. And here we have some views of this inner world. It's designed also with the landscape designer as a global ecosystem, and we are featuring here different landscape features that relate directly to the identity of the place. It means a bit Mediterranean city, that is Tirana. So I mentioned already the stone raised up first floor terrace, and then we can have like olive trees, we call it the nourishing forest. Then we have the fertile interstices on the facade with a Mediterranean household terrace that we can see on the rooftop. And here we can see how it relates to the existing context. It means even the landscape is in direct relation to this double scale that we have already exposed of the site. So here we can see this the uses that we can do of this first floor terrace, the type of vegetation that we can have, which is like olive trees mostly, or a selection of others. This is the interstitial landscape on the facade. It's not very extended, but it gets its inspiration from this.
Sorry,
of
just
green.
5 minutes left.
Okay, yes, and then here we have a small animation, I think, if it want to go before going to the, voila, to the second one. Voila, so second building. So the second building is a mixed-use building. So this mixed-use building is located on the second ring road. So you can see it, it's lot 2. And here, what we had in mind is first analyzing the context in regard with Tirana skyline, which is a mountainous landscape, but also the existing towers. So we have defined the height and the width of this building in relation to this, but most of all, I was mentioning about activating and energizing this ring road due to the fact that the area will become academic, residential academic. So we dream of having a more lively neighborhood, and we want to use the building as a high street to the district. It means it will be like a type of micro downtown featuring residential, but also bringing a concentrate of activity. So here you can see how it can work. It's completely programmable. We can change the volume. It's somehow rational and organic because they are shifted. We have like facades that can adapt to whatever use. So by the moment we have defined a use, and then this, you see how we have split the volume into 2 parts, created the vertical inner street, proposing hotel, office, apartment, student resident, and retail at ground floor, and having this proportion with the existing Orta Verticale, which is in a way the heart of the village or the heart of the district, where the other project is mostly residential. The high street that we are developing vertically has several magnets, so we can imagine that it could be a cafe, the hotel reception, the hotel gym and spa, which is offered to public. And then we have asked Krijn de Koning, what do you think about designing a 126 totem lift core? And he was very excited about it. This idea of core is that it has to be visited from inside and from outside, and it becomes the vertical totem, the vertical artistic work of the project, starting from the ground floor, so we can discover our high street and the active retail ground floors that we have. And then we are distributing, so the color of lift relates to each and every function. So we are not segregating the halls, but we are dedicating one part to the residential, one other part to the office, and one part for the public activity and the hotel. Coming up, we arrive to the upper floor. For instance, this one is one of the magnets where we have the gym
related to the hotel. And then we continue, and here we have like residential with balconies. They are integrated within the template, and voila, and hotel. This is the building. I'm going quickly. I think the facade, we are reaching 150 meters. We are working on 2 scale for the landscape, so the ground forest and then various landscape according to the sun exposure. And then this is, I think, towers really speak to the night sky. And Jan Kersale imagined for this project this a vibrant tribute to Tirana rivers, to Albania rivers, sorry. So we will have like LED setting on the facades that will be animated, and it will give us this night view. You have to imagine it being animated. We can see the vertical high street. And to end up, this is a short video showing with the motion of this boulevard how the tower can activate this area, how we can enter in the lobby and discover Crime de Konig 126 elevator. So thank you very much, and sorry if I was too loud.
Maybe refer to the second slot. There is in most proximity another high-rise building by Oda. And it's an open question, right? Not only to you, but also a question that I wonder about all the other projects, how to relate to a context that is not built yet, but a context that is very important, crucial for this one plot.
It was the starting point of our reflection. We said that we have the river, which is a very strong context that we have to animate, and we have the vertical village. And we said if we want to create animation to the river, why not designing the heart of the village? It means the building adjacent to our project is a very nice building. We get the scale. You can see it relates to the vertical village as a high street or a main street relate to a more organic setting of around. So we want to have this type of relationship deploying the residential, which will come. So if it comes, and we work very well with the project, and we have shown it in all our implementations. And it doesn't start, the project can work also by itself. We kept the scale. And you will see it, maybe we can see other images where you can see how much the relation was studied, and it's on our model as well, because we defined the scale in regard with this, but also the uses. And it's very important to see how we are showing flows, internal life, like for the first project I have shown. This, we believe, will create a vibrant neighborhood, will be the starting point of a vibrant neighborhood.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, especially in this view, how important it is for you, for this building, to be communicating with the environment through light installation, through the artwork that you presented.
I was thinking also in that sense, the night view, because I think the way we are describing it, it's better. We can see it here, because we see that. Try to go back. It always not very good in doing stuff. Sorry. So the idea of the building, I think this image is good for your question. First, we are activating the ground floor, and we have existing high trees. This is what I call very quickly the small forest. We have like a kind of forest at the base of the building, and what Crown de Konig did is that the artwork starts to become relate visually to the context. Then, when we come to the environment, We have also the streets that distribute terraces, which have like boundaries that are green, but they host activities inside. So in a way, we have shaded terrace, thanks to the recess and having this open air. Then you can see the facade. It's not an entirely glazed facade. I think it's important to say what we can do after once the program will be frozen. Because we know that the developer is not yet designated and the project has to have a range of flexibility, first in terms of structure, but also in terms of facade. We will run parametric generative design in order to define how many path and how many glazed parts of proportion. And that's why at this stage we are shortly vibrating. So here we have the south facade, we have views with protecting from the sun. So it will be studied as such. And now we are showing how the material, how it can. Then it's very important for us. The interactivity will come with what we are calling this high street. This high street is glazed parts, but we have some kind of triple height. Somehow it's recessed. You can have the shadow of the volumes. And this would be really the living vertical artery of the building. And if you see a frontal view, you can see the layout crossing from both sides. And behind you have also big trees. So we think that it would be very attractive to keep this idea of the street being open. And this board is really an open board. Very efficient because, as we said, we have multiple functions. Sometimes you segregate, of course. So we decided not to separate them, but to dedicate in a very nice space sites for every function and to distribute in this being relief. I don't want to be technical from making 3 times or 4 times 5 or 6 staircases because in other you can visualize this.
I'll jump in.
And have something very beneficial.
Thank you. Just to keep going on the vertical street, I think it's a really attractive idea and it potentially makes a lot of sense. We know from it's difficult to get retail to work up above 2-3 stories, for example. So one question, is it really publicly accessible all the way up? And if so, what kinds of uses might also be added there? And just the key here is, does the building still work if you give more space to that core up above? Is that possible?
Very quick, that's why. So basically, what is accessible to public, I can show it here. Of course, we have the retail occupies the ground floor and the mezzanine above it. So we can have food and beverage here, and then we can have either a department store or something like that. The public is admitted in what I call the magnets, even the rooftop. So they will be using the elevators. I don't know if I can catch the image easily. Yes. Yes, so we will be using, starting from ground floor, up, going down, voila, this one. So we enter from the street, we have the retail here, these 2 elevators leads to the places that are public. So we have no retail on the upper floors, I have to say it. What we have, and we call magnet, is like having the co-working spaces and cafe for the student residents, having the lobby of the hotel with its cafe, having the gym and spa, and having a rooftop bar and restaurant. We are deploying activities which are not retail, because we believe that retail, except if it is a very big department store, cannot work on very high altitude. So why we are calling it high street? Because we have amenities. And these amenities, it means a gym, which is at the 20th floor. It's very nice. Rooftop will be very nice. So we are sure that people will like very much. And I have to say also that we are using the parts that you can see here in blue. For instance, this one is an office space. Here we can have co-working. It can be open also for public, if you want. It can be a co-working space where people can rent, but it can be part of the office. So we are providing for this type of semi-public program
space and dedicating, so what is good with the lift, we can dedicate offices both here, student residents here, and this is public and stop only on the allowed public system, so we don't mix, but we enjoy another very nice floor.
Thank you very much. I think it was very well explained and very clear, the whole presentation and both explanations about everything. Thank you very much for your work. Thank you.